Welcome back. Today we're gonna be dwell, dealing with some serious topics today. This is gonna be the unions, and I was looking. We're gonna do the unions, and I'm gonna be doing some little. I think I'm gonna do a P Diddy recap. Give me 1 minute, so I thought I had everything set up as usual, and then I was making sure I had all my information. And I left it right. But I do appreciate all my new subscribers and thank you for giving me the chance. I really appreciate y'all. I really do. And I hope also on this channel, I want to teach a little, um, something on various topics, on things people didn't know. You don't have to agree with what my opinion is, but it's just to have a dialogue, on what's going on. Hey, I need to get on how we feel and dialogue back and forth. And maybe we can find some common ground. And you could teach me something as well. But I noticed that when I deal with topics that's about true serious matters, I guess most people not interested. And it's mind boggling to me that people not interested in the state of the world or what's going on. Because whether you're religious or not, we definitely in the last days. I mean, you got to see things, for what it is, um, and what's going on. That this is not normal, what we're seeing. Okay, I'm good. Now, let me get here. Oh, shit, I ain't even got that. You cannot make this. Oh, Lord, I had all this set up in Jesus. I really did. Yes, I did have everything set up. Okay, I'm good now. Anyway, welcome back. Appreciate my new subscribers. Thank y'all. So we're dealing with everything that's going on and the massive wins that the Trump administration is winning against the union. We're looking at the end of unions and its existence in this country. And I mean, unions were good in their heyday for workers' wages, to end child labor, working conditions and things of that nature. But a lot of these unions have sold out its membership. They really have. And they not as strong as they used to be. Unless you're a Teamster who have a relationship with the president. But Sean Fain does like tariffs. So no further ado. Union workers, lawmakers rally in Detroit against federal worker layoff. Mass layoffs of federal workers have sparked protests and legal challenges. A new wave of protests has emerged against the Trump administration's efforts to reduce wasteful government spending as more federal workers face job losses in Detroit. Now, the union I'm in, I haven't heard them say anything in support of federal workers, but it doesn't surprise me. Union workers and Michigan lawmakers were demanding to halt the layoffs immediately outside the John Deagle Veterans Medical Center, chanting, "Stop the layoffs. When do when do we want it now?" The Trump administration's newly established Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, claims it is reducing the workforce to save money. Right, they cutting the debt because I'll say a third of the jobs created under the Biden administration were government jobs, which does not add to our gross national product. It does not. And it created more of a deficit, which causes inflation. Just printing money is the main cause of inflation, and that's what they did. Protesters are raising concerns about how these layoffs are carried out and the potential impact on government services. One affected employee shared their experience. Being promoted put me on probationary status because that's the way it works in the federal government, said Nicole Rice. They have decided that was the easiest loophole in which to do the first round of firings of the federal government employees. So at 3:30 p.m., I received an email that my servers were no longer needed, and 5 p.m., all my equipment was shut off. Wow, even though she was promoted, so it's like you start a probationary status. Wow. See, I didn't know that went down. Wow. Trump's second term live updates. Federal employees sent second. What did you do last week email? Many federal employees received a second email demanding they list 5 tasks. And when Elon Musk explained it, it's to see if these people were actually human, if they actually worked for the government, or were these real individuals. So you didn't have to list everything, but just to let them know that you was human. And you know what? I'm going to no, I'm gonna go ahead and read that, and then we just gonna yeah, I'm just gonna take that out of my Doge. Well, you know what? I don't. So you know what? We don't. Okay, that was he said he will pardon who? Over 500 NOAA, and that's probationary staff cut. 800 more to come. The union representing the NOAA and National Weather Service staffers told ABC News that they've been informed of 586 probationary employees terminated from the NOAA Thursday, with 108 of those cuts coming from the National Weather Service. You know what? I forgot to let me turn this off. Shoot, I was washing. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. We understand that an additional 800 NOAA probationary employees may be terminated this afternoon. National Weather Service Employees Organization General Counsel Richard Hearn told ABC News in an email statement. NOAA declined to confirm the number of staffers affected by the cuts in a statement to ABC News earlier today, saying they don't discuss personal matters. Oh, this is okay. Wait a minute. Alrighty. Just hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Okay, okay. How you doing today? Just give me a minute. I thought I had looked through most of this, but as usual, stuff pop up that I ain't even know. Okay, so we did that. So now we did. Okay. Let me see on this other phone. Oh, they're moving right along. Okay, let me go to my. And this is not going to be a long video at all. No, it won't. I'm trying to cut these videos down now because don't nobody want to. But sometimes I would just want to get stuff done. You know what I'm saying? Students will suffer harm. Education Department Civil Rights Office gutted by layoffs. And this is Detroit. I mean, not Detroit, but this is the teachers union that has been dismantled. So unions are no longer effective. People protest Donald Trump's plan to dismantle Department of Education outside. The Education Department announced it was firing more than 1,300 workers, effectively gutting the agency that managed federal loans for college, tracks student achievement, and enforces civil rights laws in schools. And I'm not talking about the layoff part, but the Department of Education has did a piss poor in educating our kids for the last 30 years. Good riddance. Give it back to the states. They know better how to educate their students and the demographics in their states. We spend the most money, and we are the last one in the field of education as far as reading, writing, and arithmetic. And that's why we got to go look outside the United States for engineers, for computer experts, doctors. Look, I mean, just everything. The American people is one of the most uneducated folk in the world right now as it comes to a westernized civilization. The Education Department's Civil Rights Office has been the hardest hit by layoffs, with the Trump administration shuttering 7 of its 12 regional offices and laying off nearly half of its staff. One current employee said the moves amount to the soft closing of the office. This will completely halt the vast majority of cases that we take in, evaluate, and investigate, said an employee who asked to remain anonymous. The Office for Civil Rights aims to protect students by holding schools and colleges that receive federal funds accountable for combating anti Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, and discrimination against students with disabilities. About 1,300 employees at the Department of Education were informed that they were being laid off. The Civil Rights Office lost the largest proportion of employees of all the programs affected, losing 243 of 557 workers, according to the analysis. The regional offices in New York, Cleveland, San Francisco, Boston, Philadelphia, Dallas, and Chicago were closed, with their entire staffs laid off, multiple sources said. The expectations, employees said, is that the civil rights cases being handled by those offices will be redistributed to Seattle, Denver, Atlanta, Kansas City, and Washington, D.C. Another current uh, OCR employee told CNN they're concerned about the office's ability to manage its caseload with the massive reductions in staff. As it is at my job, one case at a time. That's it. That's all you can do. One case at a time. There was already a case backlog, and now these cases will simply fall to the wayside. No, you do one case at a time. If you do one a day, then that's all you're going to get. Point blank, period. If you could do two, you do two. You do what you can do. An honest day's work. That's it. No more, no less. This work cannot be done without staff. The messaging that this will increase efficiency and that OCR will continue to be able to fulfill its statutory mandated mission is a lie. Students will suffer harm from this, for many will have repercussions for the rest of their lives. To better serve American students and families, changes are being made to as how OCR will conduct its operations. Letters were sent to 60 colleges and universities, it says, are under investigation for alleged violations to anti Semitism, harassment, and discrimination, and that they didn't take adequate steps for their Jewish students. On March 7th, there was a memo that went out as far as the backlog of anti Semitism complaints, with the skeleton crew staff and direction to act of one category of cases, the others are being deprioritized. A current employee said, noting that cases involving race and disability, for example, will be deprioritized. Education secretary who has the mandate from Donald Trump, President Trump, is to dismantle the Department of Education, which I'm happy about it. I am. Because if I told y'all many before, my son was the first class when he was in third grade that they got rid of cursive. And I was the only parent that pitched a I cut the hell up. I was like, how was he going to sign legal documents? I had to go out there and buy books from the teacher store for cursive to teach him how to sign his signature when it relates to legal documents. I was the only one that acted a fool about that. He was the first class, and I know in some states they put it back. So, Education Secretary Linda Mahan said massive layoffs were the first step in accomplishing President Trump's goal of eliminating Department of Education. Nearly half of his staff of 4,000 was a part of a broader plan aimed at a total shutdown of the federal agency. I'm pleased. I don't want anybody to lose their job. I don't. I wish instead of firing or laying them off that they would transfer to other departments within, the government. That was the president's mandate, Mahone said. His directive to me clearly is to shut down the Department of Education. And the first thing was 1,300 people being laid off. Teachers union bent the department, the education department, to their will, shut it down to throttle their power. What we did today was to take the first step of eliminating, I think, this bureaucratic block. The department was mindful of keeping the good people at the Department of Education in place so as not to interrupt funding for educational programs. We wanted to make sure that we kept the right people, the good people, to make sure that outward facing programs, the grants, the appropriations that come from Congress, all that are being met, and none of that's going to fall through the cracks. McCohen dismissed criticism from the American Federation of Teachers head Randy Weingarten that Trump is planning on getting rid of education and taking opportunities away from kids, arguing that test scores will go up under the president's plan. Right, because the state would know better how to handle it. We're clearly not taking education away, she said. The president never said that. He's taking the bureaucracy out of education so the more money flows to the states. Better education is closest to the kids. I think we'll see scores go up with our students when we can educate them with the parent input as well. I agree. So they ended up laying off 1,315 employees. That was 600 staffers who had already left the agency after accepting buyouts, and 63 probationary employees with less than a year of service who were fired last month as the Trump administration works to streamline the agency. We have to identify where the bloat is. I think that. Okay, I think that. Okay, that's another topic for another day. And I love schools of okay. I love schools of choice. Unions are so weak now, except for the Teamsters and the UAW. Teacher unions, they were out there protesting. The Federation, the American Federated Teachers, is really angry that President Trump wants to close the Department of Education. And no wonder the American Federation of Teachers and its sister union, the National Education Association, have reaped the benefits of the agency's steady growth since 1980. So calls to close it directly threaten both unions' bottom line. Right, no more money. Your money cut. Every increase in Washington education spending helps union causes. For so many problems with the American education systems, unions will claim that the trouble is teacher shortage. That's not it. What it is, it's the federal bureaucracy, and then with this woke ideology, we're having drag queen story time and having all these books on sexual education for preschoolers and kindergartens and kids in elementary school. That's the problem. Unions claim that trouble is teacher shortage, then lobby lawmakers for more tax money cash as a solution. Historically, that's been a pattern ever since the Department of Education was established in 1980. I agree, I concur. Per student spending consistently increases, school officials hire more staff, and the problem persists. During lean economic times that disrupt the job market, such as the 2009 financial downturn or the 19 panic, unions can decry any potential cuts to education as threats to student progress. Yet, no matter how many staffers are hired, achievement gaps remain, and that is a fact. Still, unions' messaging has continued to convince lawmakers to give them and spend more money. When schools closed at the beginning of the pandemic, the unions declared teacher shortages, and federal lawmakers responded to nearly 190 billion in additional school funding. Pay increases and signing bonuses for teachers were swept, who swept schools. Now districts have to use up that short-term C-19 money, and unions are once again declaring shortages, even though the public school student enrollment is down since 2019 and achievement is stagnant. Many of the new hires aren't even teachers. The share of school administrators has skyrocketed over the last half century, with non-instructional staff increasing by some 700% compared to 243% increase in classroom instructors. The Education Department is responsible for implementing federal education law through the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and for distributing money appropriated by Congress under the law to the schools. Each section of the law creates a need for more spending and hiring, even when its programs are not successful. For example, research finds that high quality education educators, teachers who have a record of improving student achievement can have a significant impact on student success. Obviously, research does not conclusively explain, however, what creates an effective teacher. Never mind that the American Federation of Teachers operates a professional learning program fed in large part by federal dollars. Professional teacher development falls under Title II of ESSA, and the union's lobbying Congress for more spending has paid off to the tune of $2 billion in 2020. Even with all that money, it was not effective at improving student achievement. Closing the Department of Education will help to end federal grant awards for union favored projects such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is mainly for white women. They're the most ones that receive benefit from that. Last month, the Trump administration cut off 600 million worth of those grants. The union crows that it works with public pension funds, state treasurers, policymakers, and advocacy organizations to integrate racial justice. DEI is just a moral crusade for unions. It's a rallying cry for more taxpayer spending inside and outside education, even as hundreds of surveys find DEI to be ineffective at changing individual attitudes and behavior. I concur. The Federation of Teachers has lobbied Congress to increase spending on Title I, federal taxpayer money meant for students in low income areas, despite evidence that its programs cost them more than $17 billion in 2021 and 2022 skid on do not help kids learn. That's a fact. Department as part of an endorsement deal with Teachers Union more than 40 years, and the union saw dollar signs. Closing the department will help end the shortage, higher repeat cycle, therefore cutting off avenues that unions use to lobby for exponential growth in education spending and the occupying increases in union budgets. Over the last 4 decades, we learned that more money for teachers' union doesn't translate in better student test scores. That's a fact. It's time to focus our education efforts on what would truly help American kids, not on what would line union leaders' pockets. I concur. I agree. That's how that was a great article written. That was a good article written. I might have to end that right there. Now, Randy Weingarten rallied angry over department eliminating their budget. This is what she said, the president. My members don't really care about whether they have bureaucracy of the Department of Education or not. That's what she said. I don't know why you said that. The union head was very animated in an MSNBC interview with Farm when it shut down the Department of Education. It's a disaster symbolically as much as a disaster in reality. Weingarten argued that the importance of the Department of Education comes from its implementation of programs like Title I, which supports funding for students who are underachieving in areas with high poverty. You ain't improved it though. That's the problem. You have not improved those impoverished children education in public schools. No, you have not. They go from grade to grade and don't know how to read and write. That's a reality. That's the fact. And the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, a federal law that gives disabled children a free education that's tailored to their needs. She also tied it to diversity, equity, and inclusion, another target, which is mainly for white women. Let's put that out there, okay? It wasn't meant for black. You only had a few that passed it through there. The majority, just like with affirmative action, benefited other racial groups other than black folk. Now, this is the union president. The true meaning of DEI is opportunity. It is so we can create the ladder of opportunities so we can make sure the kids can succeed. Poor kids, kids with disabilities, kids who want to career, tech, ed, kids who are first generation college goers to get some scholarship money. That's what the Department of Education does. That's why so many people are so mad about it because they've taken an opportunity away from the kids. Sorry, I'm really angry about this. I'm really angry. However, shortly after Trump won in November, Wingate seemed to have a different opinion when asked about the president-elect's pledge to eliminate the Department of Education. I mean, my member, now this is what she said. I mean, my members don't really care about whether they have bureaucracy or not. In fact, Al Shanker and the American Federation of Teachers in the 70s were opposed to its creation. There you have it. There you have it. School choice proponent Corey DeAngelis responded to Wingate. Why wasn't Randy Wingate angry about the years of school closures in union controlled districts? That is a fact. Why wasn't she angry about the latest nation's report card scores showing decades of learning loss? Her priorities are so messed up. She sees the school system as a jobs program for kids instead of an education incentive for kids. Mm. I'm gonna finish this 12th and then I'm gonna show a couple of videos and then the rest of that's gonna have that. So then they sue. The union's largest teachers union is asking for federal court to halt the U.S. Department of Education enforcement of a directive that threatens to pull federal funding from schools. The lawsuit filed in New Hampshire and the American Civil Liberties Union on Wednesday. It was the second challenge to the dismantling of Department of Education. The American Federal Teachers and the American Sociology Association sued on February 25th, similarly arguing that the memo infringes upon the constitutional First and Fifth Amendments. The letter is really intended to chill educators in this broad way, and it's just not acceptable. Let me see. NDI portal to be unlawful. The portal asks member of the public to submit reports of DEI in schools similar to tip lines that states have set up to solicit reports of critical race theory being taught. The lawsuit names the Department of Education Secretary of Education. Are you going with me over there? Or are you doing something else? Okay, you about to jump in the shower? Okay. Well, when you get ready. All right, that's cool. The lawsuit asks a judge to find that the Education Department recently launched NDI portal to be unlawful. I probably said that. Oh, the portal asks members of the public to submit reports of DEI in schools similar to tip lines that states have set up to solicit reports of critical race theory being taught. The lawsuit names Education Department Secretary of Education, Linda Mahan, and Acting Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, Craig Trainer, as defendants. They're suing because the lawsuit because they want to end DEI or risk losing federal dollars. So these letters were sent out to K through 12 schools and universities all over America, which right now Harvard is pushing back and about to lose like $9 billion in federal funding. So now they got a lawsuit. Columbia didn't because they was gonna lose 400 million. They changed all that and got their money. So and they said they was gonna ban Harvard from even getting foreign students. The U.S. Supreme Court's 2023 decision that struck down affirmative action in college admissions, the department argued that the court's ruling applies more broadly beyond only college admissions. It also came on the heels of executive orders from President Trump. The letter has caused confusion. Legal experts are arguing that it can't undo existing civil rights laws, but they worry educators may comply anyway to avoid investigations from the department. Instead, the letter, along with the facts and questions in the NDI portal, radical resets long standing positions on civil rights laws that guarantee equity and inclusion and presumes districts are acting unlawfully. You still had the 1964 Civil Rights Act. He cannot undo that. That law is in place. He would have to go to Congress to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964 undone. So he cannot touch that. And ain't nobody in Congress gonna undo that. They saying that what the letter was too vague for educators to interpret, cause, and an English teacher to question how he teaches classics. A social studies teacher to fear assigning research projects on discussing history from the Civil War to a school counselor to rethink how she uses stereotypes and identity with students. It also may cause a professional quandary for some educators who have to choose between following the memo as they interpret it or following conflicting professional requirements and using best practices according to the complaint. Our members are scared and are seeing that schools and colleges are reacting to the threats by the Department of Education to withhold funding. And he is doing that by shuttering offices that did that work, by canceling opportunities for higher education professors to share their scholarship with their colleagues. We believe it's incredibly important for schools and colleges and universities to be able to teach students about the world as it is and the world as it is multiracial, very diverse place. So he's saying that the Trump overstepped the agency's authority and violates constitutional rights, the complaint argues. Meanwhile, there's a conflict in department's priorities, according to the complaint. Department has stalled many of its civil rights investigations, but is soliciting complaints focus on communication of ideas that it disfavors and describes as divisive ideologies and indoctrinations. Well, that's what all public education is an indoctrination. That's all it is. Now it's not like what it was in the 60s, 70s, and partly 80s. That's pretty bold and we think unconstitutional and illegal overreach by the department. Well, I'm all for dismantling. So here we go. This is, let me see if it's anything different in this article about the lawsuit. They're saying that they have no authority to dictate curriculum or educational programs, but you can put all this sexual stuff in there and drag queen story time in there without a parent's permission. You know, that's the right. No, no, no. So you've been doing it. You've been creating your. That's the problem. You created your own curriculum without the input of parents. So they saying the education department violating educators and students' First Amendment rights with anti-DEI directive. Wow. Says the department is wrong to find various DEI practices unlawful and has no authority to dictate curriculum educational. Yeah, but it's okay to have drag queen story time and him and her books and what's your pronouns for children. Bullshit. They say the Department of Education violated educators and students' First Amendment rights with the anti-DEI. And the DEI is for white women. Trump gave schools 2 weeks to ban DEI. Lawyers say it's not that simple. In their lawsuit, the group referenced, okay, well, okay. In the letter, the director told schoolies to cease diversity, equity, and inclusion programming in admissions, hiring, promotion, compensation, financial aid, scholarship prizes, administrative ceremonies, and all other aspects of student, academic, and campus life. Discrimination on the basis of race, color, or natural origin is illegal and morally reprehensible. And that's all in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. DEI, you didn't need DEI for that. That's already a law. Educational institutions have toxically indoctrinated students with false premise that the United States is built upon systematic and structural racism and advanced discriminatory policies and practices. It is. So I have to disagree with that. It is. Trainer told schools to comply and expunge any DEI programs that violate the Education Department interpretation of civil rights law within 14 days or appropriate measures would be taken. In the weeks since, university has shuttered DEI offices, scrubbed websites, and ceased supporting some marginalized student groups. K through 12 school districts from Kentucky to Montana have open compliance audited into their practices. So in the lawsuit, they say that teachers nationwide have already incorporated issues of race, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the content and approach to their teaching in their broader educational practice and in training and support for educators, all in accordance with sound practice. They said barring DI curricula from schools would disrupt classroom plans, stifle free speech, and erase critical lessons. That's a lie. No, it won't. It's just rearranging. Teaching should be guided by what's best for the students, not by the threat of illegal restrictions and punishment. But we had to sit through all the bullcrap your woke ideology did. Then the union press came out and said members don't really care if the Department of Education is abolished. I mean, my members don't really care about whether they have bureaucracy or not. In fact, Al Shrinker in the 70s was opposed to its creation. My son is in the shower and he got this music just blasting YouTube. It's not me. He in the shower. Danye, turn that down. Trump's second administration has prioritized the reduction of government spending. Okay, so we done with that. Yeah, I'm gonna just show these little oh, let me see. I think I'm ready for this, and then we're gonna end this. And I still went about an hour every time. Okay, Trump wins in courts against the unions.
That is right, Judge. Thank you for saying that. You don't get to substitute your decision making for the president's. There are consequences to these firings, and a lot of people are not in good spots right now. Thus, the unions estimate that the termination of all non-essential employees, would cause the unions to lose $15 million, or around 38% of all its annual dues revenue.
$33 billion for Rosa DeLaRusa, Jerry Connolly. A lot of folks know $59 billion, and the leader himself, Hakeem Jeffrey, $91 billion to their state.
There is a pattern afoot. Another big victory for President Trump. This one brought by the National Treasury Employee Unions against Trump. Of course, when Trump wins, the rest of us win because he's executing our will through the power of democracy. But you can see this came out of the District of Columbia. This comes right after Judge Carl Nichols also issued a memo dumping another set of union cases that should have been dumped. He said, you guys are here complaining about being fired. Those are employment complaints. You got like 5 other boards you can go use to file your complaint there. Don't bring it into this court and demand a TRO or a preliminary injunction to try to stop the executive branch from doing their job. That was one. Now another one. We're seeing a pattern emerge. This is good news. You can see this case came out from the Treasury Union against Trump and the Treasury Department. And the judge wrote this, says, look, the first month of Trump's second administration has been defined by an onslaught. That's right. Don't you forget it. It's been one hell of an onslaught. We're just warming up, cracking knuckles. Kash Patel just came in. That have caused, some say by design, disruption and even chaos in widespread corners of American society. It's affected citizens, and their advocates have challenged many of these actions on an emergency basis in this court and others. Certain of Trump's actions have been temporarily halted. Others have been permitted, at least for the time being. Now, these mixed results should surprise no one. Federal judges are duty-bound to decide legal issues on an even-handed application of the law, no matter the identity of the litigants or, regrettably at times, the consequences of their rulings for average people. That is right, Judge. Thank you for saying that. You don't get to substitute your decision-making for the president's. There are consequences to these firings, and a lot of people are not in good spots right now. I think they'll be in better spots when their lives are more productive, not working for the federal government, but they might disagree with that. But there are consequences for us in not making these reforms. So we have to always keep that in mind. But the judges don't get to substitute their judgment for Rubio, for the State Department, for USAID, for the Treasury Department, for the will of the American people. This case presents challenges to 3 of Trump's recent executive orders that were aimed at drastically reducing the size of the federal workforce. The unions are the National Treasury Employees Union and 4 other unions. that represent federal employees, they all came in seeking a TRO and a preliminary injunction. Again, kind of the same thing, just at different stages. One is like urgent, and then you want to see if you can formalize it to prevent the termination of their members, right? They said, you can't fire all these probationary employees, and there are a bunch of probationary employees just gone.
Right.
Because they can't. They wanted to stop.
Right.
They said, you have to stop the implementation of a large-scale RIF, reduction in force, across all federal agencies. And you have to stop the renewal of the administration's program that was the deferred resignation with pay. So cancel his fork in the road program. Now, for the reasons explained below, this court will deny the unions the preliminary relief they seek because it likely lacks subject matter jurisdiction to hear your claims. The claims must be brought through the FLRA, Federal Service Labor Management Relations Statute. Go complain somewhere else. On January 20th, the OPM, Office of Personnel Management, often thought of as the Office of Other People's Money, which is our money that they siphoned off into Lord knows where, issued a memo directing federal agencies to identify all employees on probation. And remember, it's not like, bad probation, like you got convicted of a crime and now you're on probation, or you did something bad, so you're on probation. It's like you just got hired, brand new job. So you're on a probationary period to make sure you're kind of competent. Of course, federal government's standards are, what they are. It says probationary employees less than 1 year or less than 2 years in accepted service appointment. Agency heads were directed to send a list of all these probation employees to OPM, and we're going to determine whether we want to retain them here or not. They also requested a determination from each federal agency as to which probationary employees they wished to retain, along with a short justification. And I think it was like 200 characters. Okay, it was like a small form. It's like you start typing, I'm amazing, I did this, and it's like, you're done. What? You got like 2 sentences. What? Justify yourself quickly. The federal government employs an estimated 220,000 probationary employees.
Wow.
NTEU
Wow.
says a mass firing of probationary employees is now underway. It is, they say, but the allegation is not without evidence. Here, right? They got plenty of evidence. On February 11th, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau sent pink slips to its probationary employees. The FDA and the Department of Energy have cashiered well over a majority of their probationary employees. So FDA, nuked. DOE, nuked. Health and Human Services, Bureau of Land Management, BLM, EPA, National Park Service, FDA, also sacked many probationary employees. FDIC, IRS, they're also intending to do the same thing too, and that's happening imminently. The IRS is apparently planning to fire thousands of probationary employees as soon as this week. That's good. Meanwhile, on January 28th, the OPM, Other People's Money, sent an email to all federal employees presenting them with a deferred resignation known as fork in the road. The original email went out. We read through some of it. Now, under the terms of the offer, employees who choose to resign would retain all pay and benefits regardless of their daily workload. They would be exempted from all in-work requirements until September. Take the buyout, go on vacation, get a new job. To resign, all employees needed to do is just respond to the email with one word, resign, and then get out. The fork in the road email further noted that OPM could not give full assurance regarding the certainty of your position if you choose to stay. So it's your choice. But if you stay, you might get fired. It's like Hunger Games or something. As originally announced, the opportunity to accept the offer was set to expire. Prior to the deadline, a bunch of whiny unions representing a bunch of whiny federal employees who are civil servants sue their own country, who says, we can't afford you. They sue us saying, I'm a great civil servant and you're going to like my service. You're going to like my servantness to you with this lawsuit. And I'm demanding attorney's fees too. You're welcome. The employees moved for a TRO asking for a stay of the February 6th closing. On February 6th, another judge, George O'Toole, entered a TRO, said the government, you cannot fire people at the end of the fork in the road deadline. Then on February 12th, Judge O'Toole dissolved the restraining order, denied any further preliminary injunction relief because the unions did not have standing to challenge the program, and the court lacked subject matter jurisdiction over their claims, right? Another judge says, guys, why are you suing? You're a union. Have your union members sue. The program subsequently closed on February 12th, as we saw, and all further resignations were no longer accepted. You made your bed, now you can sleep in it. It says, according to the White House, approximately 75,000 employees, roughly 3% of the workforce, resigned. They took the deal. So then, continuing the push to slash the federal workforce, Trump issued a notice another executive order. That executive order included several directives to supposedly eliminate waste, bloat, and insularity in the federal government. It's true, get rid of them. It says, relevant here, the order directs agency heads to conduct a RIF, a reduction in force, consistent with the law that your agency has, and separate from federal service temporary employees or re-employed annuitants working areas that are going to be subjected to the RIF. The order also says offices that perform functions that are not mandated by statute or other law have to go. If it says we have to keep it, keep it. But if it's like discretionary in any way, that's going to be prioritized in the RIF. And you know what those agencies are, or what those little divisions are? Diversity, equity, and inclusive initiatives. Any of those components are suspended or closed, and all components, because they're not mandatory, and employees performing functions that are not mandated also need to go. So then they say, oh my goodness, Judge, they fired us. They say that they fired over 70 term employees from this, and many of these people are our members too. So the 5 labor unions all sued. The NFFE, the IAM, the IFPTE, the UAW all sued. The unions brought constitutional and statutory challenges. You can't fire us. You can't give us this fork in the road. You can't issue this executive order. Who do you think you are? The President of the United States? They claim that these executive actions violate the separation of powers principles, which they obviously don't care about because they're asking the judge to usurp the executive power. They say they undermine Congress's authority to fund the mission of federal agencies. Yeah. They further claim that the challenged actions violate the statutes and the laws. You can't just fire all these people. Each union has dues paying members, and they're going to be impacted. To date, approximately 1,250 to 1,500 dues paying members have been fired. That represents more than $500,000 in revenue to the unions. Isn't that fun? They're like, well, we lost $500,000 because they're not going to pay our dues because Americans aren't employing them anymore. Isn't that great? Everybody's in on the grip, and we're always the ones getting screwed. 94% of members pay union dues via payroll deductions. Comes right off the top, skims right off the top. So dues members, for these members who have been terminated, stop with their final paycheck. Isn't that sick? That's why they're suing. They don't care about these employees. They care about these employees' paychecks and skimming a little portion right off the top. The IRS in particular employs more dues paying members than any other federal agency.
Wow.
DHS also accounts for a large number of members too. Thus, the unions estimate that the termination of all non-essential employees, would cause the unions to lose $15 million, or around 38% of all its annual dues revenue. Isn't that interesting? We pay the employees via our taxes, and as a member of the federal government, they join these unions for whatever reason, like they're not ever fired. It means like this is why they're all freaked out about this. Like first time ever they've been actually fired. What? The unions skim $15 million a year off the top of this. Huge portions of that money from the unions goes right back into Democratic coffers, goes right back into Democrats, literally. So they're all just getting paid. That's our money. The NFFE, for its part, has thousands of dues paying members who are probationary at the U.S. Forest Service, who the termination of them, they can't maintain their membership. Why should they be a part of your union at all? To collective bargain against the government? But the IFPTE also has some dues paying members who are also going to be fired. The unions filed their complaint 2 days later on Valentine's Day, no less. They moved for a TRO. Like, we love our country. We are civil servants, but we're suing you for everything you've got. Saying you must hire us back. You can't fire probationary people. You must extend the fork in the road and more. The court got the case on the 15th on a Sunday. That same day, ordered immediate briefing and oral arguments. Then the unions amended their complaint, saying even more people are being fired. At Department of Ag, Food, Nutrition, and more. Firing people across the board. The court held a hearing on the 18th. And so now the court will deny these unions and their motion. It lacks subject matter jurisdiction over the claims. Like, this court is the wrong court. You cannot sue for this here. They must pursue their challenges instead through the scheme established by Congress under the Federal Service Labor Management Relations Statute, FSLMRS. That's where administrative review happens for these things. And if you don't like what their result is there, you can go through the Court of Appeals. And this is 2 for 2 now. Actually 3. We've got several of these stacking up. That is right, Judge. Thank you for saying that. You don't add money from the unions, goes right back in and deny their request for a TRO and their request for an injunction. We don't even need to address these things. Let me just explain why I can't hear your case. Here's some background. This law was created back in 1978. It says federal employees can organize and bargain collectively against the federal government. It requires that unions and federal agencies negotiate in good faith, establishes a scheme for administrative and judicial review, like their own internal courts. 3-member agency adjudicates these things. There's negotiability. It's encoded in the U.S. code. You had a contract with the government to provide a certain. That is right, Judge. Thank you for saying that. You maintain their membership. Why should they be? Will you get a meaningful court appearance? Like, will you get due process and judicial review? Yeah, you will. They say that we won't. So they say it's here and now, but they can get a hearing. The harms don't resemble injuries elsewhere. They don't claim that the statute is unconstitutional. And so their assertion that it cannot recover its relief doesn't change the court's analysis. That might be true, but you can go through them. You have to make that claim there if you're going to get compensation or damages or whatever. Take it to them. They say that there's a constitutional challenge that they can't help us recover, but if absent any challenges to the procedures that they want to circumvent, I can't hear the claim. You got to go through there and say it's unconstitutional over there. Saying the Supreme Court explained that whether a claim is precluded turns on the type of employee and the challenged employment action. So this court's precluded from hearing it. You got to take it through the right forum. At bottom, the union's argument sounds in practicality and efficiency, but the DC Circuit was unpersuaded by this in another claim. There, they found the other area was more appropriate to hear this, and I can't hear it now. And so the court will deny the union's request for a TRO and for a preliminary injunction. And so it is therefore ordered that the federal government workers unions, 5 of them, and their motion for a TRO and a preliminary injunction is denied.
Denied.
So by Judge Christopher Cooper, another victory from the United States District Court in Washington, D.C. And that's another big victory.
They ain't standing a chance. These unions not standing a chance.
TROs on the books, but this is starting to be good momentum. Okay, these other judges overstepped themselves way too aggressively at the initial TRO stage. Now that these are getting scheduled for preliminary injunctions and the Trump DOJ is able to build out the record, we're seeing what looks to be like a reversal. So good developments over there. Now, we also saw this woman, Jasmine Crockett, is out very upset with DOJ and all of these changes. And she was out on the Breakfast Club explaining that.
So Trump won. Administration won. It was denied based on jurisdiction and that they had to go through the former file a complaint if they didn't like that, then go through the appeals process. It was denied. And this is what we're looking at least under this administration. It's not looking good for unions. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Oh, I wanted to see some. Anyway, I'm just going.